Welcome to the Green Nurse Podcast, where we bring hope and inspiration for growth and healing. We're here to change the dialogue and stigma around what it means to feel good and be high, hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. You deserve to feel good. We all deserve to feel good. And here is a little video about what we do in the cannabis space as nurses. And then we are going to get started on our very, very amazing, powerful show today. So I just got to get that video file. It's hiding from me. But here we go. Partners in Health.
Change the paradigm of healthcare.
The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I'm the founder of Holistic Caring. We're based here in California, and we do educational programs and case management for patients on how to use cannabis therapeutically as a medicine.
We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high, hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing.
As the founder of Holistic Caring, I basically oversee the whole ship. And what we're doing is progressive education.
Cannabis actually supports all 11 organ systems, our immune system, and all the neurotransmitter signaling systems that give messages to tell our body to either do something or not do something. Because the plant was prohibited, it prevented health professionals, doctors and nurses from learning about cannabis as medicine.
I want to change the paradigm of healthcare and us paving the way into a new vanguard of medicine.
It's about education, it's about empowerment, it's about teaching people how to feel good, bridging the gap from what they're not getting from traditional medicine, utilizing different plant medicines, adaptogens, tips, tricks, hugs, and nugs of information to support and nourish the most important system in our body.
And it's a lot of soul work, a lot of love, a lot of discipline, and meditation. I'm using my life work as a testimony to others to learn how they can be their own hero and then go help heal the world.
And we are, as nurses, the game changers.
There you go. Growing in health, growing in cannabis, blooming in health, blooming in cannabis. Hello, everyone. My name is Sherry Mack, and I'm the Vice President and co-founder of Holistic Caring and the Green Nurse and Bloom Hemp CBD. I'm a cannabis nurse. I'm also a cannabis patient, advocate, activist, and as you all know, a very passionate podcaster here to change the paradigm of healthcare. And I'm really excited to announce that this is my 7th year podcasting The Green Nurse, Living Your Best Life. I started podcasting in 2018 when the National Council State Boards of Nursing came out with a call to action that all nurses must have 6 essential areas of knowledge when it comes to cannabis as medicine. I started podcasting to share compelling stories of healing and to decrease stigma, since I too use cannabis as medicine. But before we get started on our very exciting show, we do have a message from our sponsors at Bloom Hemp. I have to share this beautiful image of Bloom Hemp CBD. Life doesn't give you days off. That is why there is Bloom Hemp. So Bloom Hemp is a woman and nurse-owned national hemp and CBD supplier, leading with quality, safety, value, and patient-centered care. Bloom Hemp products are USDA organic CBD grown in the mountains of Colorado, and they're tested for purity, potency, cannabinoid, and terpene profiles. Bloom Hemp is doctor and nurse formulated and very proud to offer a free nurse line, 970-404-HOPE, to answer questions and explain how and why CBD works in the body. So that's the nurse line. And then for those that are interested in purchasing, you can go to the website. We have an evergreen coupon called Green Nurse for 10% off and free shipping. So I just want to give a big shout out to Bloom Hemp. Thank you, Bloom Hemp, for sponsoring this show, making this show possible today. right? So really, really grateful. So as you all know, cannabis nursing, and if you don't know, I'm going to tell you, cannabis nursing has been recognized as a specialty, and nurses are truly making an impact on advocating for the safe therapeutic use of cannabis by teaching on the endocannabinoid system and how to optimize cannabis as medicine for health, wellness, and healing purposes. So the Green Nurse podcast was conceived as a media outlet to narrate these incredible tales of recovery, aiming to reduce the societal taboo associated with utilizing cannabis for its medicinal properties. So today's guest is a retired alcohol and drug counselor who is an advocate for cannabis as medicine, as a harm reduction tool, and for healing. So Jack Varnell is a resilient and hardworking individual who embodies perseverance and determination. Many years were spent working in addiction, including operating a recovery residence for homeless, indigent, and postpartum women and children. As a consultant, podcaster, artist, activist, creator, and poet based in Destin, Florida, he demonstrates a diverse skill set and passion for making a positive impact. Jack's professional background spans social media marketing, content creation, and community management, showcasing his adaptability and willingness to embrace new challenges. Beyond his professional endeavors, Jack is known for his ability to overcome obstacles and face adversity head on. He approaches life with an open mind, constantly seeking ways to foster personal growth and contribute to the betterment of the world around him. It sounds like Jack's living his best life and helping others do the same. His poetry and creative work reflects his introspective nature and desire to connect with others on a deeper level. Jack's resilience is evidence in his ability to navigate both personal and professional challenges while maintaining a broader perspective. His multifaceted approach to life, combining creativity, activism, and professional expertise, demonstrate his commitment to making a meaningful difference in the world. And that's what we want to do here, make a difference in the world. So grateful to have you here today, Jack. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sherry. An introduction like that, I skipped the whole red carpet and everything. So thank you for the kind words, and you're very much on track with the mission of me personally, as well as pretty much anything I get my hands on. I have been accused of being an evangelist of sorts on occasion, so you may have to slow me down at some point.
Well, that's okay, Jack. This is the perfect platform for this, right? Cannabis, the therapeutic use of cannabis is the use of cannabis products for medicinal, wellness, and healing purposes. And it is personal and subjective to each consumer,
Exactly.
with objective criteria being improvement in one of the 5 health domains. And we know that it's, mental, emotional, spiritual, social, and physical. So we have all of these health domains. And so I'm just really excited to have you on the show. You are a true activist, a true advocate, and you have an amazing story to share. And that's what this podcast started off with, was sharing compelling stories of healing to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. And that's why I love that an acronym, hope, inspiration, growth, and healing, because the first thing that cannabis brings to so many people is hope that they can have a better day, hope that they don't have to take a pill, hope that they don't have to do that procedure, hope that they don't have to go to the doctors every day, right? And once they have that hope, they're inspired. And once you're inspired, you're in spirit. Amen. Hallelujah. And with that inspiration allows you to grow. And growing is an action word, meaning that you actually have to do something to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And then healing, what I love about healing isn't the absence of illness or disease. It's truly a beautiful experience. It's doing the best you can with what you have right here, right now. And every opportunity is an opportunity to grow and heal. So
yes, it is.
Yeah,
it certainly is. And, my story is the foundation of everything. But the details may or may not be that technically important. They're very interesting, and I'll be happy to sit down and talk with you all day long. but we have a mission here, and we want to get to the healing part of all this. So I don't like to dance around too much in the getting sick part of all this.
Yes.
Suffice it to say that I was your stereotypical late 60s, 70s white bread kid in the suburbs with a daddy who did real well and a mother who tried to do her best, and they hated each other. And I was the one who was old enough to see all that. And although there was things that were appealing in my life, and I was certainly as I'm aware of today, much more privileged than I was aware of at the time. I started seeing the hypocrisy. I would see people say one thing and then do another, or I would hear my dad say great things to this man to his face and then talk bad about him behind his back. Or I actually had my father tell me one Sunday morning that I needed to get my ass out of bed and go to church because it was good for business. So I started seeing this kind of hypocrisy around, and I immediately went the other way. I felt at that point that the price tag I was going to have to pay to fit in and to make everybody that was around me happy, it just wasn't going to happen because they weren't happy and they weren't living what they were teaching. And so that sent me on a path that landed me, from the time I was 13 years old to the time I was 27, I was either on probation or parole. I spent 3 years in lockup. I spent another 2 years in mental wards. And then I stayed on probation and parole that length of time and then excelled at that. I needed the rules and the fear that I was going to continue to repeat that process. And as it got worse and worse, it became more and more visible with my health and the way I was living and the direction things were going, that it just wasn't going to get any better. And at that point, I started seeking out my own recovery and looking for ways to make my own changes. And
question, Jack. So
yeah.
Are you saying, just so our viewers can understand, are you saying that you were using drugs and alcohol and you got into trouble with the law? Is that correct?
Correct. And I started very young because it was in a way to escape what I called home at that point. Mm-hmm. So, the point is, I learned skills along the way. And one of those skills was I was a con man. I knew people. I was a salesman. I could sell anything to anybody. I was pretty good at marketing. I dealt in the realm of illegal stuff for many years. And considering it all, I was very, very lucky that I'm even sitting here today and I'm not dead or in jail for the rest of my life. And I'm very grateful for that. And that gratitude, though, an AA sponsor taught me that willingness without action is fantasy. And I've started embedding that or emboldening that in my life a little bit. It's like, okay, if I'm going to complain about it, I need to do something about it. So where I ended up was I worked myself into my recovery and my addiction recovery, my own personal recovery. I worked very hard at providing a place and a home for those that had never experienced it the way I felt I hadn't. And I catered to the people who fell through the cracks, because even though I had a pretty nice background I could have taken advantage of, I chose not to. They, however, may or may not have had that option. So it was my way of paying that back. And, 85 people went through my recovery residence, mine alone, and their lives were permanently changed. So some I know where they are, some I don't. Some I know are dead, but they died sober, and I'm very happy and proud of that. So with all this sobriety floating about, and studying to become an alcohol and drug abuse counselor, you have to remember this is the early 90s. And at that time, pot was illegal. That was it.
Technically today it still is.
Well, it's a lot less so.
Yeah, a lot less so. No, I know. It's still on Schedule 1. We're hoping that's going to change. Yeah.
It was always an add-on for my situation too, though, because I took advantage of other chemicals like that. In it was just a natural, that I was led to that. That was my escape. I was unable to control it. It took me further down to the point where I was ready to get up. And then it was like, I've got all these skills I've built over the years. What am I going to do with it? And I know how to talk, and I know how to get along with people. And I found a solution that worked for me. And I found a bunch of people who wanted to talk about it. So it went really well. But then I started getting sick, and I didn't really realize it at the time. Things fell apart. There was a lot of residual trash that happened in my life that I see today as a result of my illness. I had Hep C, so I was constantly dealing with ammonia buildup in my system, which made me virtually crazy on occasion, hallucinate and have conversations with people that they say never happened, that kind of thing, beyond the usual gaslighting. But
Right.
so, I accept my responsibility for that. But what I found in that process was by being willing to let go of those stigmas that I had been beat up with all my life, and to investigate at least what made me feel better, is kind of how I started back down the path. And as I got healthier and more aware of what the sicknesses were, I looked for solutions, and I found certain relief from the cannabis. And I did my own research, because that's how I do. And, I investigated and learned how to make my own RSO. And that was what did the best work on my liver damage.
Okay.
And it set me up to a place where, and I would never recommend anybody do it this way. Please follow the rules, follow the laws, and get the care of a medical professional who knows what they're talking about. Okay, don't follow my example. But what it did was it taught me a very valuable lesson, and it set me on a path to investigate. And here I am. And I'm not afraid to say I'm an addiction counselor, and yeah, I might deal with cannabis. I'm not afraid to go in and say CBD saved my life on occasion. I'm not afraid to say that, if I have a particular, because it's all about balance for me.
Right.
It is that high analogy for me. And the healing is a part of it. It comes at the end of that word, but they all have equal places. And without one or the other, you're not going to get the last one.
Yes.
And so I kept my mind closed for a long, long time. And I think that's my valuable lesson is, if you're running around town with a stigma and you're holding yourself back from being the best you can be, cut yourself some slack and investigate the opportunities. And you may be pleasantly surprised, because now I heal myself on a daily basis based on what is out of balance. And I keep those things as balanced as possible with the tools that I have available. I'm not sitting here hitting a bong all day, every day, like I used to, or what I would have.
But you're using cannabis appropriately. So the tools in the toolbox, I call them the 4 pillars of health. Diet, which we can say is cannabinoids, is part of that. Nutrition, connection, movement, rest, right?
Yep.
All of these are the pillars of health, and cannabis fits into the toolbox as one of them. And
well, look, Sherry, my RSO experiment, for that as an example, I mean, I was very well aware of what I was doing. I was also feeling very guilty because it wasn't legal. And that kind of drove me crazy, because I'm a counselor who swore an oath to not harm anybody, So if I'm uncertain about that part of my own self, how can I be of service to anybody else in their own healing other than the same old, for lack of a better term, I'll say the same old 12-step tools that everybody else can get anywhere else. I have a lot of those. I got a lot of other tools as well. It's not limited to that. But if I don't understand my own body and what the story really was there, I got sick. There were results in my life that were as a result of me getting sick. And
Right.
by opening up my mind and investigating some of the options, I found out some relief. And if during my RSO phase, do you believe I weighed 311 pounds?
So wait, so let's talk about what is the RSO phase? Tell me, how are you consuming RSO? How are you taking it?
Okay.
And how did you weigh 311 pounds?
Okay. Yeah, that's the story. And it's all about the balance.
So you were out of balance taking RSO. Is this the story?
No, not really. I opened up my mind to the fact a very close friend of mine and advocate that I've known for years kept trying to convince me that it had helped his liver and that I needed to consider it. And so I did. And it wasn't 2024 when you could go get RSO at a dispensary.
Right.
This was, the old guy in the back room, Dr. Chef, I forget his name, but the guy.
I know the guy. Everyone had a guy that made their RSO.
It was the old school way of doing it, and it's not the way to do it. It's not regulated. It's not necessarily safe. The chemicals they use are not necessarily pure enough for my taste, but it did what it needed to do in order for me to investigate down that path. And it started my balance. Then I started changing my health, what I ate. And I started exercising more, and I started doing more mindfulness, more contemplation, more meditation, getting as creative as I can on occasion. The one thing I lack is stupid living at the beach, as I don't get outside enough. There's reasons why, but it's not important here. But it's because I'm a workaholic, if you want to know the truth. So, it's all about the balance. And to answer your question, how I weighed that much it was ACTs from the Hep C and the overflow from my liver. So once I treated the Hep C, did the RSO, my doctor was very well aware of what I was doing. He couldn't converse with me about it at that time, but he was very well aware and encouraging in the results I was having. But once those dams got broken free, I just started losing weight. And it was all fluid, because it's all backup fluid from, liver damage or whatever. So, I guess
you have a lot of fluid on board. You were retaining a lot of fluid. And then once you were treating the hepatitis C with medications and using cannabinoids through RSO oil to help balance out the other systems and some of the symptoms, the weight just started to come off. So it was mostly fluid retention.
It was, for the most part, fluid retention. Now I have other problems because all the fluid's gone, but that's a different story. But again, it's all balance. Those things will change in time as well, as long as I keep to the path. And I am pretty disciplined. I have time set aside every day to do certain things, and I don't skimp on those. Not everybody can do that. But 3 o'clock in the afternoon, in most cases, you can count on me being in my bedroom meditating, and don't bother me,
Nice.
So, and do my breathing and things like that. But, my left lung, I ended up in the hospital in 2004 with fluid on my left lung only. And they drained 9 liters of fluid off my left lung alone in 7 days. And nobody could tell me what it was or where it was coming from. And the end result was a pretty serious surgery. And the truth of the matter is, now, because of my breathing exercises, I would say my left lung is much stronger than my right, but they are balancing out to where they're the same now. So, all of those things, the air, oxygen, mindfulness, food, the right CBD mixture for whatever you need that particular day. All of those things make a big difference. And then if you want to burn one at night, you burn one at night. But I smoked cigarettes for 30 years. I don't think I need to be putting any more smoke in my lungs than I need to. you know?
Yeah. We do have a comment from the from our viewers, and one of the viewers says they teach you at AA to accept your illness with drug addiction. They go back to the world accepting themselves, but the world rejects them. What can we do to educate the public to be aware of this?
You know, I think that that change is coming in its own. You know, I came from a time where it was the equivalent in some places to get busted with heroin if you got caught with an ounce of pot, you know, and look at where we are today. I have hope that the medical community and all of the advocates out there can continue to carry the message the way that we need to make sure the level of importance that we give it. And I think that those mindsets will change. I mean, if you want to talk about AA history, I can talk to you all day long about Bill Wilson and his, you know, trip down LSD lane.
That's what I was just gonna say.
You know,
He's tripping down LSD lane. And where do you think he got that concept?
He got it from the doctors who, you know, who treated him, you know. And so it may or may not have been the right thing, but look at what we're talking about with psychedelics today. You know, look, I did my share of LSD, believe me, you know, but at the same time, I'm not so sure I want to go and do that yet, because I haven't completed what I need to learn about this part of the journey. My mind is blown and expanded already. So
well, and here's the other thing too. You know, there's another comment from the same person. It's Hookstergram. This is the name. And he says, I've never been addicted to drugs myself, and that's not due to not trying. I just simply can't abuse any drugs from the exception of cannabis, but this topic is very important.
Well, here's the thing though. I mean, what I was taught was it's an obsession and it's an allergic reaction. I believe that I can drink or smoke weed or shoot smack or whatever it might be. I believe that I can do that and get away with it. And once I do, my allergic reaction is I can't stop.
Right.
Okay. Now you can apply that to everything. So if I don't get addicted to drugs, okay, fine. But I would look real close at my own life and say where I am strung out, what I am addicted to, because it might be keeping up with the Joneses. It might be shopping. It might be buying stuff online. It might be gambling. It might be just hanging out in the bars, you know, chasing women, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
We all have a big hole. Okay. And we all try to fill it with something. Sometimes we can control what we fill it with, and sometimes it goes and does damage. And, you know, that's a human condition. That's not an addict position. Okay. We are all like that, and we fill that hole. So what I got to do is I got to get balanced so that I just don't have a hole. You know?
Listen, so it's balancing out all of the 5 domains of health, right?
Yeah.
So if you're only focusing on one area of your life, you're out of balance. And
and I was, they call me, I hate the term, but I'll go ahead and use it. It has to do with those German people over in the World War II, but they call me a big book, that word, you know, and it was because I was so emphatic, and it had worked for me that I couldn't see any other solutions.
Right.
You know?
So this is what I like. So for me, when it comes to AA and 12-step programs, you hear the slogans, right? It's a way of life.
Right.
And a way of life is different for everyone. So when you're creating a program, and I think the 12-step program is beneficial, but it also, you know, for a lot of people to get started, but then you got to think about, what does a way of life look like? It's different for everyone. And what is best for each person when it comes to, because what do we want to do? Really, we just want to feel good, live our best lives, be productive, have agency, you know, evolve and not do harm, right? And so when we become out of balance, and we can come out of balance, trust me, with multiple things, just like we've been talking about, what happens is people are chasing that, right? They haven't had that hole in the soul. I can totally identify with that, filling it, looking to fill. But basically, you're chasing outside of yourself, which you can find internally inside when you just slow down enough. So that's where that meditation piece is so important. Is that
and it takes graduating from, see,
it's phased approach. It's phased.
When you think about AA and recovery, and I know from the inside that's why I left the business. You know, the idea is treated as a negativity. You are an addict, and you need to tell yourself every day you are. Well, how about I'm a loving free spirit who's being blocked from my joy by these things that I may have put in my own way. And then
addressing the reasons why. So,
and between me and you, the steps are designed to do that. People just don't teach it that way anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm meeting for a reason, you know.
The steps are very powerful. I mean, very powerful. And I've worked them with
But it's the process. It's the process that counts. It's not the actual action of the steps. It's like baking a cake. You get a recipe, you follow the recipe, but you add a little bit more sugar, or you add just a little bit more vanilla because you like vanilla.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I have sprinkles on this cheesecake for some unknown reason. Okay.
Right.
Whatever it is, you know, those things are, you know, those are my perceptions and my ideas, and they are setting me up to be let down, you know? So I just need to look at, it's a very simple process. Is there a problem? Do I agree I have it? Am I willing to do the steps that are necessary? Here's how you do it, and here's the results you get.
There you go.
It really is kind of a positive thing if it's taken that way. But people, the reasons people go there nowadays is not for the reason that fellowship started, you know? Right. So, you know, I used to get pissed off. I'd say, I'm so tired of coming to these meetings and listening to people bitch about pissing, you know, their cat pissing on their carpet, you know? And it's like, well, this is the happy, joyous, and free you're looking for, really? You know? And so there is something more, and it is balance. It is taking what works for you mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and apply those things, because without application, they're bullshit.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about, what did you learn when you went to drug and alcohol counseling school to become that counselor? What did they teach you about cannabis?
They taught absolutely nothing about cannabis. I came from a time period. I was one of the very first certified addiction counselors in the country. I was certified in two groups, NADAC, which was national, and ICRC, which was also national. And then my mentor, who was my trainer and just superwoman, Jane Fertner, also had the Georgia association. So in those days, there was no academic requirement. It was all practicum. So I spent like 400 hours in service, you know, another 2,000 in, you know, working for $40 a week. And, you know, and there was no real discussion about, it was about group therapy training and, you know, spotting addiction and whatever the tools were that were appropriate at the time to address addiction, because it was a big deal at that point. It was becoming a big deal, and it was becoming regulated, and they were passing it off to the para physicians, you know, like my boss, who was a counselor and social worker, you know. And so I really didn't get much training on that other than what I heard from my own recovery. And, you know, my mentor was a hardcore AA enthusiast for well over 30 years. She was one of like the first 15 or so that ever joined AA. And she was the real deal, you know, but she was also very real, and she knew things are up and down. And so I really didn't learn anything from her or from them about that because it was illegal, and everybody else was worried about how to make the treatment dollar, to be honest.
Yeah.
And
So you
that's why I left. That's why I left. I mean, I watched a string get, $200 an hour. I'm getting $8 an hour to do his notes for him. And I said, I went to lunch one day. I said, I've had enough. I'd already had and lost my halfway house. It's like, I can go out and talk to people one-on-one and be less stressed and more fulfilled doing that.
And so when you were doing, your drug and alcohol counseling, did they take a harm reduction approach as far as substituting different substances?
Only if they were directing you to a psychiatrist, usually.
Right.
Because it was all psychotropic meds at those days. They weren't looking for alternatives. They were following a game plan that worked and got everybody paid.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the truth of the matter. And so I what it's like now, to tell you the truth, I really don't have any idea other than what I read. And I think that cannabis is much more accepted. I don't know that in a sober environment it's necessarily welcomed. But I have seen recovery residences that tout their sober living, but 420 friendly,
Okay, so that's good. Well, so let's talk about when a person comes into recovery for drug and alcohol addiction. If we go through every single system in their body, right? Think about it. They have a huge endocannabinoid deficiency. They're not eating right. They're not sleeping right. They're ruminating. They're feeling guilty. They're feeling shame. There's depression. There's no sleep. There's the panic. There's the anxiety. You think of all of these different things, and then you got to think of the gut microbiome. They're susceptible for infections. So you have to think of the drug addicted or alcohol addicted person that comes into program has a severe endocannabinoid deficiency. Severe.
Well,
right?
and even if it wasn't damaged, they ain't talking to each other.
No, exactly. So it's just like, so how using cannabinoids as facilitators for mind, body, spirit healing just seems to make sense. It just seems that it would be beneficial for drug and alcohol counselors to be taught on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabinoids as medicine to mitigate some of these problems that people come in with that are barriers for healing, right? Because 9 times out of 10, people are being put on pharmaceuticals. Like you think about it, like, in these various programs, there's only 9%. I think that's the percent. I think that's the number. 9% of people that remain totally pharmaceutical free. So that's like 91% of people are being put on pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt about that. And, I mean, I know it from the inside. I spent during COVID, I got trapped in Atlanta, and I went and lived at a halfway house, which was being run by a bunch of guys that I trained and, many years ago. And so they gave me a place because I couldn't leave, and I certainly wasn't going to, in my current physical health at that time, I was not going to get on a Greyhound bus and travel, I just wasn't going to do it. It was all I could do to leave my room. So, but I do know that everything is by the day now. It's like, where the place that I went when I was 15, I stayed in that facility for 11 months. I did 2 years of high school. I made up for every grade that, every class I ever missed. I did all kind of motivational training and stuff that they gave us, physical training, and all kind of it was a beautiful thing, the way they were doing treatment. It was like Scandinavian based, like humanistic style treatment, except for the behavior control rooms. But, and now the same place is also the same place that I walked out of when I went back there to work, because it was ridiculous. Staff meetings were about, okay, how many minutes do we have left on this insurance? Is this person performed well enough that we can get rid of them? So, to be honest, Sherry, I don't know what the answer is other than to continue to be evangelists and to keep being loud and to keep talking to the politicians and doing all the stuff that we do.
Yep.
And don't be afraid of it, because that's what held me back, was my own hesitation and predetermined guilt about the fact that I might be crossing a barrier that got set when I was 8 years old, is ridiculous. When
Yeah.
everything else in my life is balancing together, with my diet and exercise and this or that or the other thing, and God knows I'm on fire now because I haven't been able to really work, and so now my everything is going haywire, but it's because I feel good,
Go. You feel good. And I can totally identify with that stigma as well. When I first started using cannabis as medicine, I was so plagued with stigma. I went to a different town where no one knew me. To get my medical card, I literally had the scarf on my head, a big jacket and sunglasses. And I'm not kidding. And then the same thing, shopping at a dispensary. I was
Right.
so plagued with stigma. And then my mom, when I told my mother, but it was actually what I had to do is I needed to really sit in the stigma of what I was feeling to move out of it. And the stigma got so thick that even my own mother blocked me on Facebook and wrote me out of her will for a short amount of time. So I had to sit with that, and I had to really sit with that and be like, okay, I am getting better. I am feeling better. Why am I allowing the outside world to dictate to me how I should be living my best life when I am starting to drop pharmaceuticals? So from 18 pharmaceuticals to 0 pharmaceuticals, pills and procedures to lifestyle as medicine using phytobotanical nutrients, right? You just can't. And then getting my quality of life back and getting my mind back, my mind, my spirit, my spunk, my fire, all gone. And cannabinoids truly transformed me. And so, but I had to work through that stigma as well. And it was very, very hard. And that is why I started the podcast. It's truly why I started the podcast, because I know for a fact that if I'm plagued with stigma and I've moved through it, that other people are too, and it's just sharing the message and evangelizing it and sharing those stories of hope and inspiration, and sharing, that you're not a bad person if you're using cannabis as medicine, and as a matter of fact, if there was someone on an organ donor list and I had to choose between someone that used cannabis and someone that didn't, I would choose the organ donor that was using cannabis.
Right. I mean, listen, I wrestled that same stigma, and I talked to my doctor about mine. Has always been, because I am on disability, I live with the secret fear that there's some police out there who are watching to see if I'm smoking weed or whatever, or if I've crossed the doorway of a dispensary. And so I've been really kind of fearful of that, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so I went to my doctor and I said, so how do you feel about cannabis as health? He says, well, I use it every day. I said, yeah, okay, I like this guy. And we've talked about it, and he's given me his own instructions, and he will, he'll help me get a card and all that kind of stuff. So, I think that's
great. So your doctor's open to it. You're very, very lucky.
Yeah. And you know what he told me, though? He said, he laughed at me because of my fear. He said, you have to understand, Jack, that 50% of my patients are on disability and 90% of my patients use cannabis.
There you go. Wow. It's really lucky. I got to tell you. So my mother, who blocked me on Facebook, she's using cannabis as medicine now and she had been doing very, very well with it, but she had a shoulder injury, completely tore her rotator cuff, needed to go to the pain doctor because the cannabinoids weren't enough. So she, they wanted to do some injections. They wanted to write her a prescription just for short term. And they drug tested her at the age of 81 years old, and she popped positive for THC.
Sweet.
And the doctor was like, are you smoking Are you smoking marijuana? And she goes, no, I don't smoke marijuana. She goes, I take CBD products. As a matter of fact, I take Bloom hemp CBD products. And of course, my mother now is an evangelist and it was sharing all of that. But he said,
She's the distributor to the doctor.
but it was interesting that this particular doctor was concerned about the THC. And so what I needed to do, and he wasn't aware of the endocannabinoid system. All he was concerned was that she popped positive.
Wait, that's a doctor who didn't know about the endocannabinoid.
No, did not know about it. No. He was mad, not mad, but he was concerned that she popped positive for THC and thought that she was smoking cannabis. And my mom's like, no, I'm not smoking it. I'm taking full spectrum CBD products that have a trace amount of THC in them. So what I ended up doing was I'd have a presentation that I modified and turned it into a PDF. And it was on therapeutic use of cannabis, particularly for pain, and looking at all of the different pain types and the research, outlining the research showing that cannabinoids are superior to all pain medications for all pain types except for acute pain. Acute pain, opioids are superior to cannabinoids, but we're not meant to be on opioids for longer than 5 to 7 days.
And
so it was very interesting.
Worst case scenario,
So she brought that presentation to him, and he embraced it. And he basically, and she brought all of her products and showed, and she's like, so there's a little bit in there. So, and he's basically said, well, this is very helpful and very useful. Thank you for bringing this to me. So in other words, he's not going to cut her off if she needs, a little something or this, that, and the other thing. But it was just very, very interesting just to see, even at the age of 81, they're drug testing, drug testing the older folks. But let's
Go ahead.
No, it's okay. No, you finish. Let me go.
I lost my train of thought, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, so I wanted to get back to, you're in Florida, what's going on with Florida cannabis, and then want to talk about your business, your mission, and your vision for your business. What's going on?
About all I can really tell you about Florida right this minute is it's up in the air, and what's really going to happen. I don't think they're going to change any laws here. There's too much money being made by an enclave of certain people.
So tell me what's the law for the new viewers? What's the law?
Well, the way, at least my full understanding is it's, medical, no recreational yet. There is some discussion about that, but I don't know what'll happen. They're looking to beef up the tourist business, so that might happen. I don't know. The reason I got informed about this, I worked at a place with a friend of mine at a tattoo shop, and the health department people were coming in all the time, and they were starting to rumble about on the city council in Destin. They were starting to rumble about legalizing at least CBD, and so I heard that, and I got my boss on the train, and we went to the city council meeting and got all the information we could, made a presentation, and pretty much, the way they left it was, we haven't decided what we're going to do to move forward. What we know happened is the big shot in town was kind of monopolizing the whole business within the city. And that's kind of where it started. And I think that's what happened all over Florida, is it got left to the big players locally who would be in a position to eventually make it bigger. As far as the laws go, I don't think it's going to change much unless it goes recreational. I know that enforcement just is kind of non-existent. They would be more concerned if you tried to go into the dispensary, didn't belong there, than if you were trying to buy weed out on the street, to be honest. So I don't know where it's going. What I do know is that there are now, CBD stores all over the coast, up and down the coast. When, 5 years ago, it was not even realistic that could happen. And, I see that as opportunity. That's why, I always come to a point where I say, what can I do with the skills I've learned? Well, I'm an addiction counselor, and I've gone through all this stuff with cannabis, and I've gotten my healing. And what more experience do I need to be able to be helpful to somebody, other than the formal education I need to be, well educated and informed on what I need to know? But, and then work with doctors and people to help carry that message is what I hope to do at some point.
Yeah.
Got a lot of learning to do.
Yes, that's all good. Well, this is the beautiful thing about cannabis. It's so gentle and such a beautiful teacher. It's a plant teacher, one of the most amazing plant teachers in the whole world. The pleiotropic workhorse I call it the pleiotropic workhorse of this plant, working on multiple physiologies, working on all of the different organ systems, the immune system, all the neurotransmitters, working on mind, body, and spirit all at the same time.
All the things.
It's really, really magnificent. It's such a healing facilitator on just so many different levels. And, really grateful for the work that you are doing in the community. You have a podcast. Yep. And I'm going to pull up something that you created for us.
Super.
Yeah. And then I want, in the show notes, there is a list for his podcast. You guys can click on it. I'm going to pull it up right now, and you can subscribe to his podcast. So let's just see, where is it? Right here. And we're going to show this. I'm going to copy this for later. I'll put this in the show notes. And here we go. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
All right. And you created this for us.
Bloom Essentials. The Bloom Essentials are our collection of ailment-specific, doctor-formulated, full-spectrum tinctures. Each blend features unique ingredients which target different issues, including stress and sleep, digestion, support, and pain relief. Bloom Essentials is about showing off nature's greatest gifts to mankind, that gift being the gift to heal. We take our USDA-certified organic hemp extracts and blend them with the world's most studied botanical essential oils, and then formulate specific terpene profiles to create powerful yet subtle-tasting supplements.
I'm going to give that a thumbs.
GMC Sierra.
All right, we'll put that on. That was awesome. So,
somebody pretends like they know what they're doing quite well.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for creating that for us. That's amazing. And all of your I'm putting the link to your YouTube channel in the comment section below, and in the show notes below you'll see links to Jack's website and how you can reach out to him as well. Doing great things. Do you have any other messages for our viewers? Anything that you'd like to?
Well, you're here. You're here because you're happy to learn more about cannabis and the healing properties involved. I find myself with a little girl's giggle every time I hear the word healing, because that's what it's really all about. As far as my business goes, I'm a poet. I'm a writer. I got stories to tell. Can weave a story or a tale as good as the next guy. I have, over the course of COVID and being ill, I have learned some new skills and whatnot, and also realized that the 350-page book that I have been writing for the past 10 years may not ever get published, but it might look pretty cool as a cartoon that'll be here. So keep an eye on the YouTube channel, and I'm adding stuff every day. Like, subscribe, follow, what else can I tell you? And the links are available for our community. There's also a Spotify podcast as well as the YouTube channel. Yep. So that's that.
Awesome. Jack, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you
for sharing your passion and your story, and for helping us to change the paradigm of health, truly.
Woohoo!
Yeah. And remember, everyone, what it's all about. It's truly all about living your best life and helping others do the same. I am going to end with one of my favorite inspirational videos. It's the Hive video.
We're here to educate and empower patients to make choices that are best for them. We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. Hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I was cannabis agnostic for many, many years. And you know, the more research I did, the more I discovered that cannabis is this amazing medicine.
I was told that I had a 4-stage pancreatic cancer. The doctor really told me he couldn't do anything else. He gave me her name and she called me and she came to my house. She started to give me cannabis. My oncologist was puzzled because he couldn't find the cancer anymore.
All of the learning that we get comes from the Green Nurses group, comes from their support, comes from their guidance. I trust everything that she says.
Simply meet people where they're at. The plant doesn't, stress to grow, so we don't stress to share it. We're healing people.
Cannabis has been used as a medicine for tens upon thousands of years. Here's the big message. Cannabis needs to be federally legal. We need to have laws that are the same across all 50 states that allow access to anyone and everyone who wants to utilize this powerful medicine.